Good evening, everyone. Let us prepare the mind and body for the upcoming discussion. Feel the rhythm of the breathing while you sit straight. The rhythm of the natural breathing. There is a urge to breathe. The breath comes in. There is a fulfillment, and then there is an urge to breathe out. The breath goes out. Just listen to the rhythm of the natural breathing while you sit straight. If you want some support for the back, a minimal support is okay. Avoid supporting the head. Here, now, we exist in this moment, facing this moment as if everything is contained right here, right now, as it is. This moment is complete in itself, in every way. This experience of this moment is complete in every way. Exactly as it is. With this attitude, we will have no urge to get towards anything. We will have no urge to change something, want something. Totally satisfied with the reality of this moment. The rhythm of the breathing arises and falls. The urge to breathe arises and falls, moment to moment. You are aware that you exist. Try to appreciate the simple fact that you experience in this moment. The simple fact of this moment that you exist now. Just appreciate, be conscious of it, that you exist. It's very simple. Any thoughts, any urge that you might get, just observe it like you observe the breathing. You did not do anything to cause the breathing. The breathing is conducted by some kind of a natural rhythm in the body. Some force makes possible the rhythm of the breathing to happen continuously. The same manner, some force makes a thought come, an urge come, it hangs on for some time, and then it subsides. The rhythm of the breathing, back to the rhythm of the breathing, awareness of the breath, rising and falling, like waves in the ocean. The rhythm of the breathing rising and falling in the ocean of this moment. The sense of you existing here, the simple fact that you exist. From that arises some kind of a active intention. You are either active or you are passive. You just exist, you are aware, or you are aware plus some urge. You seem to be active behind some thought or an urge or a memory, an effort, or when you recognize the automatic effort that arises in you and you let go of your participation, just observe that comes down and you again exist passive. With effort or without effort, with thoughts, without the thought. Some active urge, it subsides, and no urge, simple awareness and existence. In all these states, you exist. Just appreciate this fact and come back to this again and again, which requires no effort. Every time you let go of some effort that you find yourself making involuntarily, you recognize, let go, and when it subsides, you see that you are able to appreciate the simple fact that you exist much better, able to be conscious of this fact that you exist. In a state of restful awareness, with complete acceptance of this moment as it is. Gurur Vishnu Gurudevo Maheshwarah Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat. Take a deep inhale and gradual controlled exhale. Move your limbs a little bit and sit easy. So now we will start the discussion. Whenever we are practicing sadhana or studying the scriptures, listening to Vedanta, yoga, doing our swadhyaya, or discussing spiritual matters, whatever we have studied, the main driver behind the entire endeavor is our attitude towards the source of spiritual knowledge. The attitude towards the source of spiritual knowledge, which is Veda or Vaidika Sampradaya, the Vedic tradition, the various sources from the Vedic tradition, Shruti, Smriti, Purana, the Bhashyams, the discussions, etc. Satsanga, Guru Vakku, whatever the Guru has taught. So, the way we treat this information, the how we what kind of attitude we have, that is called the what kind of attitude we are supposed to have is called pramana buddhi. We have discussed it a few times. Okay. So now, in order to have the correct pramana buddhi towards spiritual literature, both revealed and composed literature. Revealed would be the Veda and the Vedanta. Composed would be all the commentaries, the Smritis, the Puranas, etc. For example, the Upanishads are revealed, comes under Shruti, while Bhagavad Gita is composed, Smriti. That is why interpretation of Bhagavad Gita is done in the light of the Upanishads. If there seems to be a point that is apparently contradictory to the spirit of the Upanishads, it has to be interpreted according to the Upanishad. The statements of the Upanishad, the trend of thought given by the Upanishad takes predominance over what is obviously presented in Bhagavad Gita. Right? So, what is written in Bhagavad Gita cannot contradict what is told in the Shruti. So, we have to understand it that what the sage, what the teaching intended, what is the intended teaching of Bhagavad Gita in that context is, what is the right teaching is, we can understand it correctly only when we map it to the corresponding teaching in the Upanishad, and we have to interpret it in the same spirit of the Upanishad, the spirit of the Veda. We cannot do an interpretation that contradicts the spirit of the Vedanta or Veda. So Shruti becomes the fundamental guiding post for interpreting all the other composed scriptures. Right? So this is the general rule we have. So Shastra Pramana, there is a methodology of interpretation of the Shastra, right? And there is a tradition that is preserving it, which we can understand through proper teaching by listening and studying. Right? Now, when we approach that, we approach it with Pramana Buddhi. Now, I can be a little lenient and extend the courtesy to a variety of spiritual phenomena. We can also extend it to karma. So, spirituality is not just jnana, spirituality is also karma, dharma. Veda talks about dharma, right? All the nitya karmas, the various rituals, the various chantings, the various mantras, and the effect and the pujas and all that. They also come under the spiritual knowledge. Vidhivat puja, they say, doing the worship according to the vidhi, according to the methodology provided, proper methodology. So when we read about Shraddha Traya Vibhaga Yoga in chapter 17 of Bhagavad Gita, it talks about Sattvika Shraddha, and the Sattvic way of worship always is according to the Vidhi, is given predominant. It is given uh, primary importance there. Vidhivat, doing according to the Vidhi. It's always insists that, if you go to the Shastra, it is always insisting about not doing whatever you like, whatever you feel like. So always it brings us back to the standardized methodology, and it brings us back to the Shruti, back to the Shastra. It is always bringing us back to the Shastra when it comes to what is the right way to do, what is not to do, what is to be done, what is not to be done. Regarding that, Tatmat Shastram Pramanante Karya Akarya Vyavastitau. So, what is to be done, what is not to be done, for that Shastra is Pramana. It is there in Bhagavad Gita. Right. Now, Pramana are various types. So there are different kinds of Pramana. Shastra is Pramana. Pramana means valid knowledge. When it comes to matters of spiritual significance, Shastra is Pramana. Okay. When it comes to matters of everyday life, empirical things, perception and logic and scientific investigation is Pramana. Right. Now, in order to have the right Pramana Buddhi, means in order to appreciate or benefit, in order to benefit properly from a source of valid knowledge, we need to have the Pramana Buddhi to that source of knowledge. Means we should operate that Pramana, that source of knowledge, for whatever it is intended. Now, whatever we are supposed to understand or know using a pramana cannot be the very nature of the pramana or the means of knowledge, is that we cannot get the same knowledge through some other pramana. For example, if I want to understand the color and shape of an object, the pramana I have to use is my vision, my eyes, or somebody's eyes, or extended vision. There are some, when you go to a spectacle shop, there is a mirror, there is something that's supposed to be there, you don't see any letter, but you wear a Polaroid lens, you see that letter, right? So that is extended vision, it is able to see. So regarding visual things, I am using my vision and the various instrumental aids for the vision, and then I see. I cannot use my ear to understand I cannot use my power of hearing to understand the shape and color of something. It's very simple. It looks like, why am I talking this? It's so ridiculously simple. Why should we discuss this? No, this is the nature of pramana. Okay, this is the basic understanding. Every pramana has its domain of relevance. It is extremely important to remember this when we come to spirituality. We have no problem with the domain relevance of a means of knowledge whenever we are using the normal perception, the tools of perception like vision, hearing, touch, smell, taste. and logical thinking, scientific investigation. We have no problem using that in its domain. But then, when it comes to the spiritual knowledge, we a lot of people, and also we have this tendency to try to make it scientific. Now, this is a huge headache now happening. This scientific spiritual samuchya, doing a bad khichdi of science and spirituality, trying to give scientific interpretation for spiritual practices. Dharmic practices are justified using science. A dharmic practice cannot be justified or dismissed using science. That is the whole point of dharma. A very simple, forget Vaidika dharma. I am giving you simple common sense dharma. Okay, common sense dharma of non-violence. If I approach non-violence as scientifically, I can justify non-violence or I can dismiss non-violence. I can torture, like John von Neumann. There was a mathematician and a scientist, John von Neumann. So it seems he said that if you torture data enough, it will confess you anything. That's what they do in our industry sponsored scientific investigation. Today they will say coffee is very good for health. It is take care of, you drink a lot of coffee, you will not get liver cancer, you will fight depression, blah blah blah. And then some other fellow will say, if regular coffee drinkers, your pineal gland will reduce in size, and your when they gave a little caffeine to the spider, it could not weave its web properly. Coffee will scatter your thinking. It can make you hyper. It can create tachycardia. That is another research. And tea board gives more money to the same scientist. He will say tea is better than coffee. And then the coffee board comes and hires some other scientist. That fellow will say coffee has 40 times more antioxidant than tea. Then there is other guy who will say, no, there is this NGO which will find out that turmeric milk is better than tea and coffee. You should not have tea and coffee. Then another fellow, vegan fellow, they will go and give money. They will find all kinds of negative effect of drinking milk. The milk board will give money to the researcher. They will find all the positive aspects of drinking milk. No? So the problem is not science. The problem is the scientist getting hijacked by commercial interest. So the nature of logic is that the tools of knowledge, the tools of perception, the tools of inference and investigation, they are used by the intellect of an individual, and they can be used to serve a purpose. They are used to serve a purpose. What am I using the thing for? For example, the perception bias, they say. A very simple thing. The very intrinsic problem in pratyaksha pramana and anumana pramana, in the very intrinsic problem in our perception and scientific and logical investigation is these tools of knowledge are used to serve the one who operates this tool of knowledge. A simple example: you go into a toy shop, okay, or any fancy store or anything where there are a lot of various kinds of things. You just go inside, closing your eyes, and just open your eyes and close your eyes. I'll tell you what all. Tell me what all you remember. What comes to the mind first? Now, your subconscious mind registers a lot of things from there, probably everything, but you are able to remember only one or two details. Why? Because they somehow appeal to a deep-seated samskara, a subtle tendency and a orientation, a subtle preference that is operating in processing the data that is coming in. The visual data that comes inside is processed according to the samskaras in the subconscious mind. Samskara means the subtle tendencies, the preferences, and all that vasanas that we have. According to that, the raw data is given an interpretation and a meaning, and a, you are mentally seeing something there. Sometimes, like we see the ghost when our mind is overcome with fear. You listen to some ghost stories and all that, and then you are there, you are lying down in the night alone in a new place, and in by the window there is some kind of a light, mild light, and then there is this some tree that is uh, shaking outside, and then some clothes are hanging probably, and it is shaking in such a way with the play of the light in the window. The shadow looks like there is a ghost. You think there is a ghost. The shadow is in some weird shape. It makes you think of a ghost. Then you are imagining there is a ghost, and then the because of the wind, the tree is moving in certain way, and the bark is making, the branch is making some sound like like that. It makes some sound, and then you think there is really a ghost, and you are scared for 1 second. Then you go put on the light and then see, oh, the noise is coming from the branch and all that. Then you come back, then the fear is gone. But the interpretation of the data is happening according to the fear that drives you, correct? So this is the nature of our sensory experience and our logical interpretation. It is always driven by the personal samskara and vasana. So the scientific method has a lot of checks and balances to make sure that the personal bias is minimal or nil, and something they call as empirically valid. Okay, this should be empirically valid. It must be the same no matter who does it, no matter who sees it. It should be seen as the same way. Under the same conditions, it should appear the same, and it should behave the same. And if there is an experiment, I must be able to replicate the experiment again and again. Under the same conditions, it should produce the same result. This is called scientific method, which aims to cut away this personal bias so that you arrive at the realistic knowledge that is independent of individual interpretation. So that is the whole scientific method is built for that. So then it becomes a pramana, valid knowledge. But again, it is nothing but processing the information of our sensory inputs, and the sensory inputs come based on the instruments of perception. If I see with my naked eyes, an object looks in a certain way. If I switch off the light and turn on ultraviolet lamp, the same object looks in a different way, right? So if I look at through infrared and night vision goggles, the heat signature, if I see, it looks in another way. So based on the instrument of perception, the object of perception keeps changing, right? So there is a, whenever it comes to perception, whenever it comes to our experience, the experience has its own limitation based on the instrument of experience and the conditioning of the experiencer. An experience, okay. So they say when you want to analyze and understand and interpret a situation, you should use shruti, yukti, and anubhava. So when it comes to making a judgment, a value judgment in our spiritual journey, there is a saying. It says you should use your shruti, yukti, and anubhava. Means you must see what is recommended by the shastra. Then you should use your own logic and understand it, and then it has to be confirmed by experience. This is the common wrong way of putting it. It's not like that. It is, you see, you experience something, then you process that experience through logical thinking and scientific method and minimize your personal bias and see what Shruti has to say about the same situation, and it adds the additional dimension of the spiritual truths connected to that situation. So the ultimate authority becomes, so what is seen by perception can be falsified, or its limitations can be realized by further scientific investigation. Like they say, don't believe what you see, don't believe what you hear. Uh, Consider only after a very thorough analysis. What you see is false, what you hear is false. Only what you have well analyzed and concluded alone is true. There is a very common saying, right? So, experience, anubhava, the personal experience is there, it is important, but above that, the authority goes to proper analysis, and above that, and the authority goes to the Shruti, or the spiritual knowledge that is revealed. If you are talking about Shruti Pramana comes from a dimension on which our empirical world is based on. So, what Shruti tells supersedes your experience and logic. Logically, if you say Charvaka philosophy, as long as you live happily and comfortably, live comfortably. Yavat jivet sukam jivet. Even for illustrating that, he said, even by taking a loan, drink ghee. Ranam krutva gritam pibhet. Yavat jivet sukam jivet ranam krutva gritam pibhet. Charvaka philosophy. So what he says, live happily and comfortably as long as you live. Even if you have to borrow money and have nice food and enjoy your life. Who bother about giving back the money? You don't have to bother about giving back the money. Once you die, uh, once the fire has taken your body, basmi bhutasya dehasya punaragamanam kutah. Who has come back from the dead? So there is no consequence. Once you die, everything is gone. So just by hook or crook, just live comfortably. Charvaka. Okay. Now, logically, it makes sense. And then I can always go into, torturing the data, like I told you, to justify adharma. This much of adharma is okay. I can justify, like they say, 20,000, up to 20,000. I read yesterday, there is this herbal seasoning for, we use for pasta and other things, oregano seasoning and all that. So there is a legally approved limit of insect particles in that herbal seasoning. Up to 20 insect particles per 100 gram is allowed. Something like that is there. Like that we have up to so many percentage of microplastic is allowed in a given food item. So much of animal content is allowed in a given food item. Like that you have some rules. So this much the body can tolerate. So that much you can. So what will happen? The company which makes will always try to maximize profit by adhering to the minimal standards that is required to push the product in the market. So you just harden your heart and go ahead with a profit motive to give substandard product to people. As long as you are not under legal pressure, as a company, you are not bothered to give the best product. Coca-Cola in Germany is one quality, Switzerland is another quality, India is another quality, Indonesia is another quality. Because the pressure given by the government to hold on to certain standards is different in each country. According to the pressure, they will deliver. So if I am ready to poison my people with all kinds of nonsense, so the company will not care. Your own government doesn't care. You people don't care. So why should I care? I will make my profit. And there is a very highly educated MBA and corporate lawyers and all that whatnot, Ivy League graduates, all employed to try to find out how to make the most crooked arguments possible to make sure that I maximize the profit by doing the most. How much can I sell my adharma? How much I can make the government and the world and the people? How much I can create a hogwash, eyewash, and create an illusion that everything is okay, and how I can this is what the whole education is meant for, right? So these all these experts are there to make sure that I can maximize my profit by whatever adharma I can do, whatever is wrong, how can I pass it off as right with the right arguments? And then there is this ethical committee which tries to, so it's all a complete, a mess of various personal interests interacting. So if I am going to scientifically investigate, I can justify something, I can also dismiss the same thing. So logic is a two-edged sword. So logic serves the logician. The person who employs the logic can twist it in any way to justify any way. And through pure scientific investigation, we cannot come at the conclusion or the knowledge that is given by the Shruti. For example, the spiritual knowledge talks about Atma, that is eternal, which is the adhishtanam of the Mithya Jagat. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva Napara. Okay, this is a Vedantic statement. Brahman is the ultimate absolute reality which does not require anything for its own existence. The Jagat, the world of experience that we see, is a dependent reality that appears in Brahman. It is only an appearance, it is not true. Sounds like quantum mechanics, but it is not. Okay. Jivo Brahmaiva Napara, the individual consciousness that you experience as you, the conscious person, you are not different from Brahman. You are Brahman only and nothing else. You are that Brahman. This is the teaching. This is the concise essence of the entire Vedanta as presented by Sri Adi Shankaracharya. Right? Now you can say Jagat Mithya. Let us take this statement. Jagat Mithya. This world is apparent, is only true as far as its appearance goes, only true at the level of appearance. It is not actually true. It is only apparent reality, dependent reality. It is not true. It is an illusion. World is an illusion. It is only an idea. The example given is a pot. What is there actually is clay, but we see it as a pot. When I see as a pot, I am not aware of the clay. When I see it as a clay, I am not seeing the pot. It is not a pot anymore. There is this very famous Thirumandiram shloka in Tamil. It is a Thirumandiram shloka. There is a wooden elephant. It says, in the wood, the great elephant disappeared. The wood, the elephant was covering the wood, and the elephant got covered by the wood. மரத்தில் மறைந்தது மாமத யானை, மரத்தை மறைந்தது மரத்தில் மறைந்தது மாமத யானை, மரத்தை மறைத்தது மாமத யானை, மரத்தில் மறைந்தது மாமத யானை. Then it says, பரத்தை மறைத்தது பார்முதல் பூதம், பரத்தில் மறைந்தது பார்முதல் பூதம். Param means here the Brahman, the absolute reality, the supreme reality, the absolute consciousness, that which does not require for anything else for its existence. That was covered by this five elements, the perception that is dependent on the five elements. And once I resolve the five elements back into the cause, and the cause and effect both is gone, and then all the five elements are resolved back into the supreme reality, and the supreme reality alone exists. This is a famous line. Now, in our experience, in quantum mechanics says, everything in quantum physics says, everything is only an appearance. It is energy that appears in various vibration patterns. So all the phenomena that we see is explained as various patterns of vibration, and it is a idea. Everything is only an idea. You can say, oh, Vedanta says the same thing, so Vedanta is scientific. No. Vedanta says everything is Brahman and you are that Brahman. Science can never get there. The whole point of Vedanta, the Pramana, the Shastra Pramana, is for revealing the knowledge that cannot be obtained by perception and science. If I can get something by perception and scientific investigation, I do not need Veda, just like what I can get by my eyes, the shape and color of an object. I don't need my ears or I don't need my psychic perception. All I have to see is, what is the color of the ball in front of you? Orange color ball. To see that, I don't need to close my eyes and open my third eye and try to see with my third eye. All I have to do is to open my normal eye and say the ball is orange color, right? So, for normal things that can be obtained, that can be understood and appreciated and lived with common sense, using science and perception, I don't need my Shastra, right? I am feeling too agitated right now. So if I take a few deep breaths and then probably I sit and relax, drink a glass of water slowly, I will be okay. This is basic common sense, scientific understanding of the breathing and everything, and connection between the breathing and the stress pattern, right? Now for this I don't need a special puja ritual to be done, so that with the blessings of the deity I will calm down here. No, that's not required. All I need is to take a few breaths. So I have to know what knowledge to use for what purpose. So the reason I came to this pramana concept is to understand the domain of relevance of each pramana and the limitation of each pramana. All this discussion about the problem of logical perception and other things is it has its own domain, and it cannot, the relevance of this scientific knowledge cannot be pushed beyond its domain of relevance. Similarly, spiritual knowledge has its own domain. The relevance of spiritual information cannot be pushed against the domain where the common sense is enough. Whatever can be achieved through common sense, it can override common sense only if the spiritual knowledge is going to add another dimension, and it is going to take us further into something deeper than what is apparently relevant in the common sense. Like I told you about non-violence. Non-violence can be justified, non-violence can be dismissed. Speaking the truth can be justified, or speaking the truth cannot, speaking the truth as a value. For example, for the person who speaks the truth, in Yoga Sutra it says, for a person who diligently practices speaking the truth always, whatever he says will come true. Now, how am I going to arrive at it with science? With what scientific method am I going to prove? I can probably analyze the data. So I can, what this science and spirituality mixture can do is that science can probably analyze the effect of spiritual practices on observable empirical phenomena. If I do some mantra chanting, how that mantra chanting affects my brain, how that mantra chanting affects my stress pattern, how that mantra chanting affects my metabolism, whether it heals something or not, all that the scientific investigation can see. But does it exhaust the scope of the mantra chanting? Shastra would have recommended that mantra chanting for a certain result, what calls as adrishtam. Shastra says, when you employ a spiritual tool, a ritual or a chanting or whatever, it creates what is called as adrishtam. Adrishtam means that which is not seen. That which is not seen means that which cannot be seen. It cannot be seen by our perception. It cannot be seen or verified through scientific instrument. It cannot be empirically verified. That is what it means. That is the very meaning of whatever is the result that is produced. So it has to be taken based on Shraddha. For example, the rituals meant for ancestors. Now in a few days Mahalaya Paksham is coming. Pitru Paksham, they say 15 days. A lot of people, the whole country, millions of Hindus observe that, and then there is a lot of ritualistic purification and rigor in the house. They don't take onion and garlic for 15 days, and then a lot of ancestor based rituals are done. It's a Pitru Paksha, it is called 15 days Mahalaya Paksha. Now, whatever those observances, the result it is supposed to produce, you will see a lot of posts and things that are trying to explain it in a scientific way. So that will undermine the whole point of Mahalaya Paksham. The whole point of Mahalaya Paksham is to create what is called as the Adrishta Palam, the result that cannot be verified. And all the Shraddha rituals will be done. So Shraddham is to be done with Shraddha, that which is done by with Shraddha. So the whole thing is done in an attitude of surrender to the Shruti Pramana, to the Shastra Pramana, attitude of surrender and faith, and treating that as valid knowledge. Period. You just do it because it is a vihita karma. It is a injunction. It is recommended, and these are all the results. So the one who is desire of the result, the one who wants that result does that karma. Or if it is the duty, in order to avoid what is called as uh, desecration of one's duty, there is a sin of desecration of one, a sin of ignoring one's spiritual commitments, the what is called as pitru runam, a debt to the ancestors. It is not to be ignored. So this karma is to be done. If I don't do the karma, if I do the karma, I will not get anything. If I do the karma, I will get. If I do the karma, I will not get anything. If I don't do the karma, I will get what is called pratyavaya dosham. There is some kind of a spiritual demerit I will get, and it is not good for my life after death. Now, how are you going to deal with this using science? Now, if I am going to try to give a scientific explanation for everything, then some one smart guy will come up with alternative solutions. He will say, "See, you are telling this through, all these rituals are going to give, because of this scientific reason, because of this season, that season. So you are eating sesame seeds. Sesame seeds have this special antioxidants, omega-6 fatty acids, and all that. And because of that, it prepares you for the winter." All unimaginably ridiculous explanations they will give for spiritual activities and for various things. For early morning to uh, uh, clean the front of the house and put kolam. That rangoli kind of thing they put. For that, they will give early morning ozone is more. So it is. I have heard this. Ozone is a poisonous gas. If you breathe ozone, you will die. Okay, so early morning ozone is more, and also and somebody will say these people going around the people tree, that Ashwatha tree where the Ganesha is there, going around Ashwatha tree, because Ashwatha tree is the only one that produces ozone, and because of that, that is called as king of trees. I mean, like, this real serious scientists will laugh at all this. This is called pseudoscience. So, trying to give scientific explanation for spiritual things is one of the uh, very rampant and very serious cognitive disease that has plagued especially the Hindu society and the new age spiritual fellows. The monotheistic people are not bothered about it. Okay, they are also trying to say that people of faith, the faith is useful. People of faith are less susceptible for suicidal thoughts. They are able to handle stressful situations in life better. They create some statistical analysis, and everything becomes a tool for stress management. If something is not good enough for stress management, then that thing is useless. Okay, I understand that stress is a major problem these days. But please don't reduce everything into a stress management tool. Everything is for healing. All the Shastra talks about Adrishta Palam and all is gone. So everything, this is called Jada Buddhi. We are able to appreciate only what we are able to physically see and experience here. This is called Jada Buddhi, um, gross intellect, where I am not able to appreciate subtle aspects of life. So this is actually a cognitive problem. Trying to use scientific explanation for spiritual things will mess up your scientific thinking, and it can lead to pseudoscience and wrong adaptation of the wrong methods for whatever you need, and it can create problems, empirically verifiable problems. Also, it will undermine the relevance of spiritual knowledge, and it will twist your mind and cloud your spiritual purpose. It will undermine the validity of the spiritual knowledge. It will always say that, and then it will basically, if I can scientifically justify something, I don't need Veda for. No, it can dismiss the whole relevance of Veda. Giving a scientific explanation for something from the Veda basically dismisses the relevance of Veda. It basically says Veda is unnecessary. That is what is the conclusion. If I am going to give scientific explanation, so somebody was asking, somebody was telling, giving an explanation for Sri Lalita Parameshwari, uh, Pancha Pancha Brahma, Pancha Pretasana Asina. This comes in Lalita Sahasra. That Pancha Brahma Swarupini, and all that it comes. In the four, uh, Brahma, Vishnu, Rudra, Shiva, and Sadashiva, they form the asana for the Devi to sit on it. It is a imagery. So, based on the uh, Siddhanta understanding of the various tattvas, 36 tattvas, and all that, this imagery of the Panchakritya Prayana, Panchabrahmasana Asina, Panchakritya Prayana. So the goddess does all the five, controls all the five aspects of creation, sustenance, destruction, dissolution, veiling, and revealing. All these functions are taken care by the goddess, it says. So it is a certain visual imagery. So then somebody gives a thing, Shiva, the Shakti is sitting on top of Sadashiva. Sadashiva is potential energy. Shakti is kinetic. This is all unnecessary nonsense. So we don't have to give scientific explanation. It is a symbolic imagery for some cosmic truth connected to the functioning of various dimensions of consciousness. So the whole spirituality deals with you, the conscious person, and all the concepts, the rituals, the structures, everything is meant for you, the individual, the conscious entity, which is a subjective aspect of the experience, right? The subject of every experience is you. So the whole spirituality is centered on the subject, while the entire scientific investigation and the methodology is centered on the object. The ultimate subject, the conscious entity, the Chaitanya, can never be objectified. That by which everything is seen, but that which is not seen by anything. Kena Upanishad. That by which the mind thinks, but that which cannot be an object of thought. That by which the eyes see, but that which cannot be seen by the eye. All the words stop and return back. Yatao vacho nivartante apraapya manasa saha. Right? Along with the mind, everything comes back. There is the eternal supreme Brahman. So again and again it says it is not an empirically verifiable thing. The ultimate spirit that animates our conscious experience as an individual is not an object of any experience. So the scientific method that deals with empirical phenomena tries to analyze and understand and try to create experiments to verify theory and tries to formulate theory to justify an experience is totally oriented towards the empirical phenomena, and it is not relevant or it is not intelligent to bring scientific thinking and approach to spiritual methods. One thing that can be done is to see that whatever is the spiritual method or the approach or is doing is not contradicting what is already clearly proved by science and analysis and perception. abadikata, it's all abadita, abadikata, anadigata, abadita. It anadikata means it is not available for other means of knowledge. It does not contradict what is revealed by other means of knowledge. It might add a dimension, but it will not contradict. Everything is Brahman. Does not contradict my experience that I have my Android mobile here. I am talking to you on Zoom. It is not. This experience is not contradicted. This experience is valid in its own dimension, but the phone is Brahman, the Zoom is Brahman, the talker is Brahman, all the components of this experience is Brahman. It adds another dimension to this empirical knowledge without contradicting it. But the dimension of knowledge that is added to our current experience is not achievable by empirical method, right? So that is how it is. So that pramana buddhi, to develop, it is very important not to do the wrong khichdi of science and spirituality. Never bring scientific thinking to spirituality, especially to justify spiritual practices and to give explanation and relevance, to explain the relevance of a spiritual method or a practice or a knowledge, a revealed knowledge. Do not bring science. It is not in the domain of science. That is exactly why Shastra is Shastra, because it is outside the domain of science. And you don't need Shastra for something that can be understood and appreciated and experienced and lived through perception and scientific understanding alone. I don't need Shastra to tell me that I can take a paracetamol and my headache is gone. Right? I don't need Shastra for that. All I need is proper scientific analysis of that chemical to see what are all its positive effects, side effects, etc., and then to give the recommendation. Fine. Right? So don't mix science and spirituality ever. That is one of the biggest mistakes we can do as a sadhaka. We do this mistake because we don't understand the concept of pramana. When we understand it, we approach spirituality with shraddha, and we approach science and perception with rigor and self-discipline and questioning our subjectivity and skepticism. Science and perception is made more and more relevant through skepticism, while spirituality and the benefits of spiritual knowledge is obtained more and more through shraddha. So with that, I will conclude the discussion. There are no questions here. There are any questions? Shall I wait for a minute or shall I conclude the class? Okay. There is a question. 1 minute. Somebody type it. All right. I would like to ask you about strong unconscious drives. You are talking about superimposing and personal bias. What would you have to say about strong unconscious drives formed in childhood? Very good. So that comes under samskara and vasana. So based on how it is operating, we can use the right tools of yoga and handle that. Your combination of yoga, tantra, and self-analysis, vichara, etc. We address that. Um, I can deal with it in a more detailed way in the coming class. Right? It is not the topic of uh, today's discussion, but somehow today's discussion has led to this topic, so that's very good. I will discuss it in the coming class. Yes, it's a very important thing. So it comes under dealing with samskaras and vasanas obstructing the knowledge. Pratibandhaka, it is called, the various inner obstacles for realization of the reality. So this comes under that. So we will deal with that in the coming classes. So that's what the whole process of yoga is for. Yeah, sure. Om पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ओम शांति 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 ओम तत्सते थैंक यू